So I was recently on the new Human Lab website and I noticed this was built inside of Webflow. Now there was one really interesting thing I found on this site, and this was the ability to change the video that was on a CMS page using timestamps. So all of these timestamps work like a native YouTube video, but all of these timestamps are put into the CMS. So as you can see here, when I click on one of these, it's going to update the video above. It's also going to make sure that I scroll back to the video every time I change one of the chapters. Now I thought this was really interesting because this could be very useful for a blog or for a podcast site. So what I'm going to do is show you exactly how we've recreated this inside of Webflow. I'll walk you through how to set this up, then I'll show you how to actually add the information into the CMS to make it work perfectly. Now let's jump over to the Webflow clonable. You'll be able to find this clonable in the description of the video. Here you can see we have all of the timestamps and a video up here. When I click on one of these timestamps, it's going to scroll me to the video. So it's going to make sure the video is in viewport here. And then it's going to update to that exact timestamp. So if I click on this one here, you can see it's changing with those timestamps. Now let's set this up inside of Webflow. So the very first thing that you need to note with this is typically this would actually be on a CMS page. Now for this example, we have it on the home page, but we also have it set up on the CMS page as well. So if you wanted to come in here and grab this information from the CMS page, you can do this, but you can also make it display on a static page. Now for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do this as if it was on a static page. If it was on the actual CMS page itself, you wouldn't have to set up the collection item and everything, but with this one, all you need to know is that you actually need the collection list and then a collection item. So if you can see inside of here, we have our collection list and then we have our collection item because we're pulling the CMS data onto the home page. If you were doing this in the CMS, you would not need this because it would already be on that page. So for this one, all you need to know is that with this one here in particular, it is slightly different. All this content here would just go naturally onto the CMS page without this need for a collection list wrapper if it was on the CMS page. Now let's jump into setting this up. So the very first step to setting this up is setting up the CMS. The CMS is actually really easy to set up for this. You only need two fields. The first one is a rich text field, and this is going to be where you put your timestamps. Now for us, what we've actually done is we've added bullet points as an easy way to format these timestamps, but you can have this however you want. The ideal thing here is that you're just going to pull in the information from the description of YouTube, then you're going to paste that into the Webflow CMS. Now the second field that we need is just a text field. This is going to be called video ID. Now we're not actually using the normal video element from Webflow that you typically see when you embed a YouTube video. We're using a separate embed, and all this video ID is going to do is give us a way to actually find what video we should be showing on page. I'll show you through exactly how to grab this URL later, but you can see in the screenshot here, it's literally just the end of the video URL. Now the second thing we need to do is set up the video player. The most important thing with this is we actually have two parts. We have the div block, which is on the outside. That's going to need an ID. So if you go up to this example, you can see we have a div block, which is called YouTube_video-wrapper. And then there is an ID set inside of here, which is iframe-wrapper. Now that's the outer layer. The next thing we need to do is get some code and actually add an embed inside of that div block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the embed inside of here. And then I'm going to go to the live version of this site because then I can just copy this code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it into this embed. Now, when I hit save, it's going to give us a video player, but it's not going to load the video that it should be loading because you can see the one above is actually loading this specific video. Now, to make it load the video that we have loaded up here, what we need to do is connect the video ID with the URL inside of this embed. Now, if I just come into the embed itself and scroll across to the SRC link here, you'll see youtube-nocookie.com/embed/. Now, at the end of this // what we need to do is add a CMS field, and that will be the video ID field. Once I hit save inside of here, now you can see it's actually connecting to the video ID we already have inside the CMS. Once you have this set up, the next thing we need to do is add timestamps to the page. These timestamps are going to be what actually links together the time that we need to actually skip to in the video and the video itself. So what we need to do is add a div block with the ID timestamps-wrapper and then add a rich text field inside of that div block. That rich text field is then going to need to connect to the CMS because that's actually going to display the content on the page. So let's go up here and do that. What we need to do is add in a div block. And you can see with the example we have already set up, we have the div block here called timestamps-wrapper, and it also has the ID timestamps-wrapper. So I'm just going to add that ID in there, and I'll also add the class just to make sure we're matching everything up. Then we're going to add in a rich text field. And with this rich text field, what we need to do is make sure that this rich text field is actually linking up to the timestamps inside our CMS. Now what I'm going to do is just quickly add a class in here so we have all of the correct styling. Now to just make this nice and clean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this wrapper here, which was already existing, and I'm going to delete this video at the top to show you that this is the new video and this is the new timestamps. And then we're going to move on to the next step. And the next step of this is to add a piece of code to the before body tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the live example so we can just copy this. And I'm going to copy this information. And then I'm going to go over to the page settings and I'm going to go into the before body tag. And this is where I'm going to paste this code. So you can see I've already got the code pasted onto this page, so it should already be working. But let's just quickly run through what this code is actually doing so I can quickly just give you an overview as to how this works. So to break down this code really easily, essentially what we're doing is we're converting any of the numbers in here into seconds, and these seconds are then used actually as chapters on the YouTube video. Now with this next section of the code, all it's going to do is wipe out the default link that we already have set in the CMS, and instead it's going to replace that link with the timestamp URL. So what this is going to be is going to create a situation where we're actually adding the amount of seconds that the video needs to jump to when someone clicks that link. And finally, the very last thing we have here is a little bit of smooth scrolling. So when someone clicks a link, it's going to bring them back up to the video and it's just going to make it nice and smooth and improve the user experience. So what I'll do is I'll copy this code and then I'll pop it into the settings here. Now, once you pasted the code into the before body tag, all you need to do is hit save, and then we can move on to the next step. And that is to actually add the CMS content itself. So all you need to do here is add the actual CMS item to fill out the CMS and display it with the correct information. This should then give us the ability to test if this is actually working. So what we're going to do here is we're going to upload a new episode of the Huberman Lab podcast and see exactly how this is working. So what I'll need to do is go over to YouTube, and then what I want to do first is grab the URL, and at the very end, I want to grab this little bit after the equals. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to use this in our video ID when I add the new item to the CMS. So let's go into the CMS. Let's add our video ID first. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab our timestamps, and then we can fill out the rest of the information. So let's just grab everything inside of timestamps. Now what we need to do is just paste that into here. Now what I'm going to do is just format these and add them as bullet points. Okay, so now we've got them all formatted inside the rich text field. One thing to note here is that it does not matter what the link URL is here because we're not using this link URL. The only thing that's important is these are exactly the way that it would be formatted on YouTube. So what I'm going to do is I'll just grab the name of this so we can get the actual episode title, which is this one here. And I'm going to paste this into our CMS. And then I can hit publish on this one. Then we'll be able to find this and test if it's actually working. So if I just go over to this, you can see we have it set up. Now we have 2 episodes. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to filter this so we can see just the 1 episode, and we'll make that the most recent. So let's just add those filters into the collection and limit this to 1. It's not actually something you'd see on your end if you're using this just on a CMS page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit publish, and I'm going to test if this is working. So let's go across, hit play, and then let's start skipping around the actual video itself. And you can see everything is linking up. So whenever I click one of these, it is changing the video to that specific timestamp. It doesn't matter that I didn't change anything. All of the links are just pulling from the information inside the actual link itself. So it's just doing the maths on this and saying, hey, video, let's change the actual chapter to that specific point. And that's everything there is to setting up these YouTube timestamps natively inside of Webflow. As you can see, it's relatively simple to do this. Actually, setting it up isn't too difficult. And actually adding the information into Webflow isn't too difficult. The main tedious part is just formatting the information inside the CMS, but it's probably not a big issue for you because I assume you don't have as many chapters as this, and it's probably not something you're doing too often. So if you want to add those timestamps onto your website and have all of this rich information on here and be able to actually skip around the video natively on your site without having to interact with the YouTube video itself, then this is how you add those timestamps into Webflow. Hopefully this is helpful. If it was, then please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll make more videos like this in future.